Hello, I'm Carson in Mr. Thompson's third hour English 10 class.
And I'm Mason from Mr. Kogel's fourth hour English 10 class.
And this is our podcast about Of Mice and Men.
Alright, so Carson, I'm going to start us off with the theme throughout the Book of Mice and Men and how it
Alright?
progresses and changes moods throughout
Yeah.
it. So, in the beginning of the book, we start out in a forest,
Mm-hmm.
this beautiful forest full of nature, crumpling leaves. It really is quite, better than any
Yeah.
part
You,
else of the
you,
book.
you can almost just imagine the beautiful scenery the way that Steinbeck described it, with the rabbits running along. It's just what you'd think of when you think of a forest, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned rabbits, by the way. We'll get to that later, though. So the next part of the book is the ranch, as we all know. It's where the main part of the book is.
Yeah.
And you expect it to be, kind of nice. But as we find out, the ranch, especially the bunkhouse, is pretty miserable and it wasn't in great condition.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you'd think it'd be more like habitable, but when I was reading the book and the way that he Steinbeck described it in chapter two, I was like, This is not a place that I want to live in." You can kind of just tell that the people have been there for a while and that they just kind of come and go and are just looking for their $50 to get out of there because they don't want to be there, and it kind of foreshadows and sets the mood and tone for the rest of the book, I'd say.
Yeah, it really is just isn't a good place. Very poor conditions.
Hmm.
All right. And then the book further on progresses into the end part of it's still the same forest, but a different tone almost. It isn't so beautiful. It's more stormy,
Dark and gloomy, yeah.
dark and gloomy, as some would call it. And
Yeah,
it's just,
y-
it's cool to see the progress, but, kind of sad at the same time.
yeah, because that's when of course George shoots Lenny, and that's why it's such a dark scene and such a powerful moment on what the theme and what we need to realize, which will be discussed later.
Yeah. All right. So let's moving on into certain groups of people called outcasts or misfits, as some would say,
Yeah.
who all have something in common, which they're dreams. There's a lot of dreams presented in this book, and, kind of just shows the American dream.
Hmm.
And
It
all these
encapsulates
characters,
that it might not always pan out to what you think it is or what you're
yeah.
planning on happening.
We'll look at each character's examples here.
Yeah.
So first, we have Candy and Crooks because they are very similar. They're both
Hmm.
disabled in a way. Crooks, with his name, has a crooked back. Candy, I don't know how he came up with that name, but he doesn't have one of his arms.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say arms, but one of his hands.
Hmm.
Because he always rubs his whiskers, as it says. And, both these guys are very old, as in the book says. In their
Yeah.
dreams, they didn't plan on staying there their whole life,
Yeah,
but they
and
did.
that's especially true and outlined in chapter 3 when Candy's dog was shot, and he gave the final okay on that and everything. But Candy's dog is shot,
Yeah, it's kind of
and
one of his only connections there.
yeah, so he gets really depressed in chapter 3 until Lenny and George start talking about what their dream's gonna be, which is living on their farm off the fat of the land.
Yeah, his dream kind
And
of gets like revived.
yeah, and when Candy joins in, he's like, okay, I got someone that I can go in on this. I mean, I don't want to stay on the ranch for the rest of my life. Maybe this will work out. And Candy told Lenny and Crooks about that, and I mean Lenny and George about that. And Lenny and George they only got $10 in the bank, but when Candy whips out the 350, and they only need 600, it kind of revives their dream just for like almost the rest of the chapter, until you realize that you know, it it's probably not going to work out for them for what's to come, you know?
Yeah. Let's just get so close just for it to get cut off.
Yeah.
You,
So Curly's wife, she's also one of the outcasts. She's misunderstood throughout the book because she's a woman and she's lonely. She's the only woman on the ranch that's like, you know, one of the main characters. But
yeah.
so she's misunderstood. She's like over sexualized. It feels like isn't like chapter 2 wasn't she like giving them the eye and
Well,
George
as
told
Candy describes it, she gives everyone the eye, but,
yeah
is she really giving them the eye?
yeah you know and she's accused from the rat trap but I think she's just you know looking for a friend because Curly doesn't like to let her talk to anyone and she's gotten really lonely and even depressed I'd say because of it you know she just wants to talk to anyone
Yeah.
and
It's
you
like
know
a quarantine, almost. Just forced to, not go anywhere, really.
yeah so that was a great example but you know she has her dreams like nearly everyone else on the ranch you know she had a plan of being an actor until that was shut down when she met Curly and you know that's an example of her American dream you could say you know being kind of canceled out just by the way that things go you know
Yeah, as her dream was to be an actor, aspiring to be one anyways. But
hmm
the reality of it was there was just men out there telling her she could be one because they probably thought she was pretty. They wanted
yeah
to impress her.
yeah she's almost just like taken advantage of throughout the entire book it's really sad
Yeah. So let's move on to the final character who is a misfit, and that would be Lenny. You know, one of the
hmm
main characters. Someone argued to say the main character.
yeah
Everything kind of revolves around him. But he still doesn't really fit in. He's mentally unstable in a way. You know,
yeah
he just can't really do things other everybody does. Like George goes to a prostitute house and he isn't allowed to go because he's a little stupid.
mentally mentally handicapped you know
Yeah, and in this way, George kind of seems like his parent, almost some would say. He just follows his orders, even if he doesn't like them, because even he like doesn't like some things George says, but he does it anyways. Like even George tells him to jump off a cliff and almost kills himself, but he still follows his orders.
Yeah, and I think that it's especially outlined that Lenny's an outcast in chapter 4 when he's talking to Crooks, and I think that's when it really gives the reader a good perspective that Lenny and Crooks they are outcasts because they are outcasts because everyone's at the in the town at the club or whatever when
Yeah,
they're stuck back at the ranch because they're not allowed to do anything.
yeah.
And
All four of these characters are stuck in that one barn area.
yeah, and in chapter 4, it's also kind of like where all of the hope in chapter 3 gets kind of squashed when you realize that Lenny may be a burden to George and Crooks outlines that. And Crooks he just seems like a realist, you know? He sees things for what they are and
Yeah,
I think we all could learn a bit from that.
yeah. And
S-
as we talked about, everyone has their own dream. We obviously know Lenny's dream is to tend the rabbits. Is his main goal, obviously, but the real reason he wants to go live on his own land with George, of course, live by himself without a care in the world, petting rabbits and puppies and mice and whatnot.
mhm.
But it just turns out it's never gonna happen because he can't really understand and comprehend, to keep and order instructions all the time. And it's
Mhm.
just kind of sad to see that.
Mhm. Okay, yeah. So all throughout, you know, when they're at the ranch, um, Lenny, Curly's wife, and Candy and Crooks, they didn't get human interaction, which I think really dealt a huge mental burden on them, you know?
Yeah.
And everyone needs human interaction with each other. I mean, we're social, and especially during like you mentioned previously, during quarantine when we couldn't talk to anyone. Like, not I don't mean to sound like so like hypersensitive or like a wuss, but that was a depressing place in my life. It just I don't even know why it was
Yeah.
so depressing, but it just was. Being
It was
around
tough for a
my
lot of people.
Yeah, being around my family for probably 9 months, it gets really old and it's depressing in itself. And I think that's kind of happening to Lenny Curley's life, Candy and Crooks on the ranch. They're probably all depressed and they just want people to talk to.
Yeah, it's just kind of hard, to think that these four people, or I shouldn't say four, but like Lenny, not Lenny, uh, Candy, Crooks, and Curly's wife, they just never really had anybody to talk to, so their dreams never get expressed well enough to
Hmm.
become true.
Yeah.
Like, what's her name? Curly's wife gets shut out by her mom. She can't do what she wants. Crooks is African American, so he can't do most things he wants.
Yeah.
Candy probably just is because of the accident with his hand, so he can't do things he wants, and his only relation is really with his dog.
Hmm. So that kind of brings us to foreshadowing, and I'll let you take that away, Mason.
So during of Mice and Men, we see a lot of foreshadow onto that there's going to be something bad that happens at the end of the book.
Yeah,
And
all
I was just
throughout.
like I didn't really know that Lenny was gonna kill Curly's wife. I thought he might have killed someone, but I was thinking more of just like Curly.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, it does make kind of sense, you know?
I don't really understand that. Could you elaborate that for me?
Well, he likes soft things. He was like,
Oh
touching
yeah.
mice all the time.
Hmm.
But we learn everything he likes, he ends up killing, you know?
Yeah.
And that kind of goes with his wife, because he gets mesmerized by her. As you remember, when she walks over by the first time, he can't keep his eyes off her.
Yeah.
George has to try to push Lenny off of his gaze, you know?
Yeah, that's really good. And even in chapter one, you could probably sense that something good wasn't gonna happen because George mentions to Lenny, if anything bad ever happens, just come back to this very spot. And that made me think something bad's gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
another big example of foreshadowing, I'd say, was definitely in chapter three when Candy's dog was killed, especially by Candy saying before his dog's killed, "All right, take him." You know, that kind of told me right then and there that you know, Candy and his dog, like they've been together a lot, just like George and Lenny. So that got me thinking.
yeah,
Maybe George is gonna give the final okay to kill Lenny. And I think that's a great example of foreshadowing. Um, and I've never seen such a clear example of that, and I really liked how Steinbeck pointed that out.
yeah. And to go along with that, Candy should have shot his own dog, but George ended up shooting him, which kind of brings along the debate. Or I want to ask you, Carson, if you were George, would you have shot Lenny?
If I was
Like
George,
thinking back to
would I have
what
shot
Candy
Lenny?
said.
I mean, as much as I hate to say it, I think I would have, ran away, probably taken a train to the east. But
Yeah.
if that happened in the book, I don't think it would have been the same message, you know?
Yeah, like it's tough because he already has run away with him. Does he really want to do it again? Like
Yeah,
it's tough repeating the
yeah, he
process over and over.
George is almost stuck in a loop, but I feel like he has a deeper understanding um of Lenny that it's not his fault and he doesn't really understand what's going on. So, I don't know. That makes me think about maybe it was the best decision for him to shoot Lenny and who knows? In the afterlife, Lenny might have you know, went to the farm that they were imagining when Lenny was killed, you know?
Yeah, we can only hope so.
We can only
I
hope
mean,
so. Yeah.
I hope he can pet all the rabbits he wants. But yeah, because everyone has their different, you know, opinions whether they think Lenny is innocent or not. Because he really didn't know any better, but he also kind of did. Because he's been warned many times, but we also know he has a problem, remembering
hmm
things.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just something to ponder for everybody, whether they think Lenny deserves it or if it was just a misunderstanding.
hmm
And it kind of brings it to final remarks, Carson. Is there anything else we'd like to say?
I think um of Mice and Men gives us a great perspective on our dreams. That's mainly what I picked up from it. And that we've got to follow all the way through with things because when George Dent and Lenny got out of him, that's when it all ended. And
Yeah,
I think that could be applied to us. We just got to finish things, and we can't aspire too high because some things are just unrealistic. Like so many people want to be in like the next NBA superstar or next NFL player. But the fact of the matter is that's literally one in millions, and the statistics are that it's just not going to happen. So I think it's important that we make Plan Bs, we stay careful, and we don't start relaxing until it's over.
yeah. It's a great book about the American dream and the realism of it, as you would say.
Yeah,
So, is that it?
I think that about wraps it up, Mason. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Carson. Goodbye.
All right, peace.